Recap: Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 833, Chapter Beismeier. This tale reaches you through the hands of Henyi translations, both translator and editor, so the echoes of the battlefield may be heard clearly. Ma Duobao looked upon the gathering storm of enemies as if it were no more than drifting dust. His gaze did not tighten, his breath did not change. With a casual lift of his chin, he beckoned as though inviting guests to tea. "All of you together! Come, let me see what you've got!" Zuo Qifang's mouth curled into a cold, contemptuous curve, and Wu Gaoyuan's eyes flashed like iron drawn from a forge. Alongside them stood 3 other prodigies descended from the immortal realm sex, and at their flanks loomed 2 18-eyed corpse kings, grim monarchs of death whose mere presence could make a cultivator's spine turn to ice. 7 great elites formed this spear point. The terror of their combined pressure was enough to make any onlooker shiver. Zuo Qifang answered without the slightest hesitation, as if Ma Duobao's invitation only confirmed what they had already decided. "We didn't need you to say it. That was exactly our intention." Yet even as the air tightened, Ma Duobao's laughter rolled out light and amused, like a tiger entertained by wolves. "Ho ho! 20 stars of shattering void-tier battle prowess. That kind of might is rarely seen, even in the immortal realm. I truly want to take a good look." The prodigies did not share his curiosity. Their words were knives, their smiles were frost. "Too bad," one of them mocked, voice laced with disdain. "So what if you have 20 stars of battle prowess? The gap at the immortal level is far too great." Another added, colder still, "Between 10 stars and 20 stars at shattering void tier, the difference isn't even that large. There's absolutely no reason to force your way up to that limit." And then, like a verdict thrown down from the heavens, their final declaration rang out across the mountain wind. From this day onward, the Purple Moon Empire will no longer exist. They spoke as if erasing an empire were as easy as brushing ash from a sleeve. But Ling Han, standing amid this thunderous destiny, did not nod along with their arrogance. Instead, he slowly shook his head. In his eyes, there was a clear understanding that the others either refused to admit or could not reach. Precisely because every step within the immortal level was separated by a terrifying gulf, there was a need to perfect cultivation at every level below it. If not, then on what basis could those so-called geniuses, boasting 1 star or 2 stars, stand above the rest? What made them genius at all, if their foundations were hollow? Zuo Qifang and the others spoke of no reason to pursue 20 stars, only because they themselves could not touch that height. After all, anyone dispatched down from the 5 sects of the immortal realm, if not suppressed by the realm's regulation powers, could sweep aside all opposition in the lower realm with ease. Yet, the 5 sects themselves might not be any kind of top-tier power in the immortal realm. And if that was so, then the younger generation they nurtured might not have polished and perfected every cultivation realm along the way. Even so, reaching 18 stars at shattering void tier was extraordinary in its own right. In the vast history of the lower realm, who knew how many millennia had passed before freaks like Ma Duobao and Heilian Tianyun had finally appeared? While these thoughts flickered through Ling Han's mind like swordlight, the battle surged forward. Ma Duobao did not waste breath on further argument. With a careless lift of one hand, so casual it was almost insulting, he struck out toward the 7 elites. A shout tore from the opposing side. "Hey!" The 5 prodigies erupted at once, each unleashing their own terrifying blow. Wu Gaoyuan stepped into the strike with the weight of mountains behind him, and the mountain and river axe appeared in his grip like a legend made real. As he swung, the axe's path did not merely cut the air, it tore space itself open, ripping a wound into the heavens. The 2 18-eyed corpse kings showed no fear of Ma Duobao's might. Like twin calamities, they charged straight in, meeting that casual strike head-on. Peng! Peng! In the blink of an eye, both corpse kings were blasted backward, hurled away as if slammed by an invisible world mountain. Yet that collision was not meaningless. The force of Ma Duobao's attack was greatly dispersed by their interception. The moment it weakened, Zuo Qifang and the other prodigies, Zuo Qifang among them, managed to parry the remainder without being shattered on the spot. And in that single exchange, the truth became painfully clear. Ma Duobao was terrifying. It was only a careless strike, offered with almost no seriousness, and yet it required the combined effort of 7 great elites, each carrying battle prowess at the level of 18 stars of Shattering Void tier, just to meet it head-on. The sky groaned as the fight ignited in full. Ping! Pang! Pang! They were soon locked in a fierce, grinding clash. Palms colliding, blades screaming, axe-like tearing. Both sides clearly held back ultimate moves they had not yet revealed. But even without those final trump cards, their combat already looked like the wrath of the heavens. The battlefield rolled from the mountain's foot to its peak, and from the peak into the skies. Whole swathes of stars were knocked loose and fell as if the firmament itself were breaking. For a moment it truly seemed like the end of the world had arrived. Thankfully, those stars overhead were not ordinary stars. They had been formed by the powers of the world itself, and could be replenished endlessly. If they had been true celestial bodies, then no matter how many existed in the heavens, they would never have survived the punishment these fighters were inflicting upon the sky. And while that cataclysm raged above, another storm gathered below. The heavenly astral king watched the enemy ranks with a crooked smirk, as though already picturing their collapse. "Heh," he said, the laughter in his voice sharp as a hidden blade. "Have you all washed your necks clean?" Though the 8 kings could not be considered second-tier elites in their current state, the moment their battle prowess displayed 18 stars of Shattering Void tier, then even 15 stars of battle prowess would still place them among the 3rd tier. That was the kind of presence they carried now, enough to make a battlefield tilt. And despite being only 8 in number, they held absolute confidence that they could crush the over 100 Shattering Void tier elites gathered from the 5 sects. The 5 sects side did not accept such humiliation in silence. "What shameless boasting!" Several brown-haired antiques snarled. Then with grim resolve they began to ignite their own vitality, burning the candle of their lives to force out more power. Hong! A terrifying surge erupted from their bodies, and in an instant their battle prowess climbed to 14 stars. The 5 sect truly had deep roots. Ordinarily, once the elites of the 5 sects entered Shattering Void tier, they would choose to seal themselves away. They would wait until the reckoning was complete, then enter the immortal realm and continue their cultivation there. It saved effort and promised better results. However, there were a few who chose a harsher path. They would refuse to seal themselves off immediately, and instead continue cultivating for a little longer, leaving themselves only a few dozen years, before finally using the time liquid. These rare figures were called the Protector Technique Kings. They existed for one reason. If a major issue ever appeared that threatened the survival of the 5 sects, though such a catastrophe was unlikely, they would be the ones to unseal themselves, step back into the world, and erase the danger before it could swallow everything. But they paid a cruel price for that duty. Because they no longer had many years left, every time they fought, they had to burn vitality. That burning was not merely exertion, it was the expenditure of lifespan itself, shortening the all-limited time they had remaining. And even if they later entered the immortal realm, they might no longer have enough time to advance into the immortal level. To choose such a role required formidable awareness and even greater courage. That was why the Protector Technique Kings were the most respected. Even Zuo Qifeng and the other prodigies from the immortal realm treated them with great politeness, showing them profound respect. There were 5 Protector Technique Kings in total. 4 of them had reached 14 stars of Shattering Void tier battle prowess, and the last had achieved 15 stars of Shattering Void tier. With the arrival of these 5, the overall might of the 5 sects surged dramatically. Then the 8 kings moved. "Charge!" the Lunar King shouted. Though she was a woman, her temper was the most violent of them all, and she was the first to rush forward to attack. She did not test the waters. She smashed the surface and dove into the depths. 8 lunar techniques! From the very first exchange, she unleashed powerful moves. Her 2 delicate hands, in an instant, transformed into earth-shattering giant palms, massive, overwhelming, as if moonlit mountains had taken shape. She delivered successive palm strikes downward, one after another, each blow carrying crushing force. The other 7 kings naturally did not sit and watch. They charged out as well, each moving to their own line of attack, their combined momentum like a rising tide of kingship pressing toward the enemy. And on the side of this sprawling battlefield, Ling Han suddenly seemed almost free. He rubbed his chin, eyes following the chaos, and muttered to himself in a low voice, "Is there still a need for me to move?" The Revere life sword was no longer glowing. In truth, it had been Ma Duobao who was controlling it from a distance just moments ago. But now, Ma Duobao was fully engaged against powerful enemies, and he no longer had the leisure to manipulate the Revere life sword. Ling Han's defences were top tier, perhaps unmatched by any other present. But when it came to destructive power against shattering Void Tier elites, his attacks were practically negligible. Whether he moved or not, it did not seem like he could change the course of the larger battle. That fleeting calm shattered as a familiar figure stepped forward. "Ling Han!" Xu Shuran strode out, the absolute saber in his hands, his aura sharpening like a blade pulled from its sheath. "I'll be your opponent." Ling Han responded with a dismissive wave, swatting his hand as if brushing away smoke. "I can't be bothered to fight you," he said, voice cold with contempt. "You're too weak now." The words struck Xu Shuran like a slap. Rage flooded his face. He trembled with fury. He was still a well-known figure of the younger generation in this whole world. Even within the immortal realm, he could still be considered a genius because he had grasped Saber Heart, though he would not be as rare there as he was in the lower realm. And now Ling Han was treating him like an insect. "You are underestimating me too much." Before Xu Shuran could explode forward, another voice cut in, cold, challenging. "What if I join in then?" Then another, "Me too." And another, sharper still, "And I!" Ah! Donglinger stepped out. The small sword emperor moved with eyes like winter steel, and the son of lightning advanced with a cruel, harsh chill in his stare. Together they formed a 4-point pressure that closed around Ling Han like tightening chains. Ling Han lifted the Revere life sword and gave it a deliberate shake, as if testing its weight, as if warning them that this was still a blade meant to judge life and death. "Fine," he said. "Then I'll send all of you down to hell so you can atone for the innocent blood your predecessors have spilled." The son of lightning answered with a twisted smile, the corners of his lips curling as though he delighted in the ugliness of his own words. "They were all ants," he said, voice dripping contempt. "They contributed what they could for the sake of our immortal realm. Isn't that simply their responsibility?" As he spoke, he had already summoned a replica of the mountain and river axe. Within it was condensed a sliver of realm powers, and because of that, its might could not be underestimated. Ling Han's expression turned harsh, and he raised his sword until it was level, steady, absolute. He pointed the Revere life sword directly at the son of lightning. "Just for saying that," he declared, "you deserve to die." The son of lightning threw his head back and laughed loudly, as if daring the heavens themselves to disagree. "You'd have to be able to kill me first!" He brandished the replica mountain and river axe and charged out. The treasure had already been activated, and it exuded a terrifying might that pressed down like storm clouds gathering over a battlefield. But the Revere life sword showed absolutely no reaction, no glow, no answering surge, no awakened edge of divinity. For an instant, a suspicion rose in the air like smoke. Could it be that the sword had expended too much energy during that earlier battle of ultimate brilliance? It was not an impossible thought. The mountain and river axe could be proclaimed the strongest spirit tool in the entire realm. Add to that Wu Gaoyuan's own power. How terrifying had that combination been? And yet, it had still been blocked by the Revere life sword. Even if Ma Duobao had been the one manipulating it, such a clash would certainly have demanded a tremendous expenditure of energy. So it was logical, painfully logical, that the Revere life sword might not be able to unleash its powers now. The moment Xu Shuran realized this, triumph burst out of him like wildfire. He laughed, loud and sharp. "If your sword cannot activate, how could you possibly match us?" He activated the absolute saber in the same breath, and its power rose like a tide as he slashed toward Ling Han. Once these two spirit tools were activated, they would be equal to Shattering Void tier battle prowess. Furthermore, that strength would be at least 10 stars, stronger even than the Ice Dragon Ground Blast formation. This far exceeded Ling Han's own battle prowess. Translator, Henyi Translations, editor Henyi Translations. Listen well, because when thunder arts meet demon steps, the battlefield stops looking like a battlefield and starts looking like a storm given human shape. Ling Han unleashed the thunderclap ninth heaven, and the moment that furious lightning intent wrapped around his meridians, he layered it with the demon fairy steps. In that instant, his body no longer moved like ordinary flesh and bone. He slipped and flickered like a bolt that refused to be caught by any gaze, agile to the point of disbelief. But even a man who dances through lightning knows where weakness can hide, not in himself, but in those he must protect. Before the battle royale could chew up the careless, Ling Han drew Zhu Xuan, Rabbit, and the gold-seeking rat into the Black Tower. It was not because they lacked courage, but because this was a chaotic slaughter where a single stray ripple could wound the innocent, and Ling Han could not afford to split his mind to guard them while fighting. As for the 1,000 veteran soldiers, there was no need for him to worry about them at all. Those hardened men had already placed themselves into a battle formation, and once the pattern locked, their aura became incomparably frightening. Like a steel tide surging forward with shared breath and shared intent, they charged straight into the group battle. The 8 kings were involved in, each unit crashing into the melee to fight alongside their respective bosses. Yet the greatest danger near Ling Han did not come from numbers. It came from 2 terrifying spirit tools, the Absolute Saber and the Mountain and River Axe. Powerful as they were still merely 2 spirit tools, and more importantly, neither possessed a tool spirit. That single fact decided everything about how they could be used. They could deliver frighteningly mighty attacks, yes, but they could not automatically lock down onto targets. Every strike required manual control. Every slash, every cleaving arc demanded that the wielder truly grasp the opponent's movement first. No matter how monstrously talented Shu Shu Ran and the Son of Lightning were, their cultivation level was still a great disadvantage. Their first problem was brutally simple. They had to be able to see and catch Ling Han's movements well enough to aim. Because if they could do that, if they could truly lock their eyes and intent onto him, then with the speed of the attacks delivered from those 2 spirit tools, Ling Han would not be able to dodge. The saber and the axe were swift, fierce, and merciless. A clean, solid hit would be death for most. But the problem was, they would have to grasp Ling Han's movements first. And how fast was Ling Han's speed now? To Shu Shu Ran and the Son of Lightning, it was a whole blur to their eyes. Their attacks screamed through the air again and again, yet for every 10 attacks they shot out, at least 9 would miss, carving nothing but wind and thunder mist. If they faced any other person, it would still be fine, with the might of these 2 spirit tools suffering even a single attack. Even if the victim did not die, he would be heavily injured. But this was Ling Han now. His physique was as tough as level 10 precious metal. So what would being hit with a single attack do? It did not even manage to give him an itch. What more pain? Even if he was slashed 100 over times, perhaps he would only have a very shallow wound. There was nothing that could be done. This terrifying toughness let him act as recklessly as he liked, as if he could trade flesh for position without paying any real price. And just when Shu Shu Ran's group thought the pressure could not become more suffocating, a tiny figure burst onto the scene like a wild little comet. "Niu will come and help you!" Who Niu cried, charging out without hesitation. Her physique was far inferior to Ling Han's, but in terms of speed she was superior. She scrambled up and down, darting in impossible angles, her small frame slipping through openings that grown warriors could not even imagine. Her tiny fists and claws carried destructive ability packed into a ferocious little storm, and every pounce, every swipe, posed an incredible threat to Shu Shu Ran and his group. Where Ling Han was an iron mountain wrapped in lightning, Hu Niu was a fast-moving calamity with claws. On all 3 sides, it was a battle royale. And no matter which battle you looked at, they were all on the level of Shattering Void tier. This was not a place where ordinary experts could step in just just because they had pride. Even heaven-tier cultivators were not qualified to join in on this kind of battle and could only watch from afar, unless they too could set up their own formation. Yet among these three violent storms, one clash stood above the rest like a blade held at the throat of fate itself. The battle between Ma Duobao and Wu Gaoyuan was the real decisive battle. Whoever won that fight would doubtlessly trigger a massacre of the other side, because once the peak predator stood alone, the rest would become prey. Therefore, though the other two groups were battling furiously, they all split out a portion of their attention to focus on the fierce battle taking place at the highest spot. Every heart asked the same question beneath the roar of qi and steel. Would it be Mao Bao who emerged victorious over all his contenders, or would he be swallowed by the pack of wolves? Then in the second group, a voice rang out like a hiss from a venomous throat. The beast Snake King shouted loudly, "Asura Demon Emperor, are you not going to reveal yourself?" The words struck Ling Han like a sudden chill through the spine. The Asura Demon Emperor, Ling Han's heart trembled. That was an existence with 15 stars of shattering void tier of battle prowess, an entity whose appearance alone could very likely tip the balance of victory in the second group to one side. And indeed, the hidden terror answered. "You really have a dog's nose. I've already hidden so far away, yet you could still sniff me out." The Asura Demon Emperor appeared at last. He was still possessing the body of a sturdy man, but black demonic qi twined all over his body like living ropes of darkness. Just one look was enough to tell he was far different from an ordinary person. His very presence felt like an abyss wearing skin. But the surprises did not end there. "The other one too. How long do you want to continue watching the show?" The Sword King called out as well. As he spoke, he shot out a flash of sword qi toward a distant spot, a sharp line of intent slicing through the air as if to peel away concealment itself. "Hey!" A cloaked person shot out from that location, slipping into view like a shadow-given form. The third killing formation. A person who could set up formation techniques by nature, someone who from birth was said to be the strongest existence in the world. A being who could kill even shattering void tier elites. Ling Han's eyes swept over him, and he could not help but feel secretly shocked. He had seen this person once before, and back then, the other had given him a strange sense of weakness. The man was very powerful, yes, but his own body and presence had felt extremely weak and feeble, like a blade with an unparalleled edge mounted on a cracked handle. But now, that feeling was gone. Previously, this person had helped out the Thousand Corpse sect, and the payment he had received was probably related to this, compensating for a weakness of his, filling in whatever flaw once limited him. So Ling Han's mind raced, weighing danger against danger. How powerful would this kind of third killing formation be? The 9 great killing formations could all kill shattering void tier elites. To be specific, Ling Han himself had only seen the 4th killing formation before. Moreover, that one had not been naturally formed. It was a handicapped formation that the Thousand Corpse sect had laid out, and it had been easily broken by Feng Po Yun. But this was different. This was the 3rd killing formation, naturally formed, and now seemingly with his disadvantage compensated for. How strong would that make him? Could he kill a shattering void tier with 10 stars of battle prowess? Or 15 stars? The cloaked figure spoke with chilling simplicity, his gaze already measuring lives. "I have been asked a favor. I will only act once, kill one person and leave," the 3rd killing formation said, his eyes focused on the 8 kings. He said he would only kill one person, and from the way his intent pinned them, the person he wanted to kill was one of the 8 kings. With the inclusion of the Asura Demon Emperor, the 8 kings were actually no longer at the advantage in the battle, and if the 3rd killing formation truly could take one of them, then the entire structure would collapse. With that death as an opening, the remaining 7 kings would definitely retreat in defeat little by little. They would either retreat or die in battle here. People often said it was difficult for a shattering void tier elite to die, but difficult did not mean impossible. It did not mean they were not killable. Ling Han felt the danger like a needle pressed into the heart. He wanted to move to block the 3rd killing formation. His battle prowess was not strong, but his defenses were much too terrifying. If he used that unbreakable body as a wall at the right moment, he could disrupt enemy plans perfectly, even if he could not overpower them. Yet before he could step, a cold, mocking voice cut him off. "You had best stay here obediently." Shu Shuran smirked, his expression sharp with confidence. Working together with the Son of Lightning, they stopped Ling Han from interfering. The cooperation of the Absolute Saber and the Mountain and River Axe, if even that could not detain Ling Han, then something would be wrong. They tightened the net of Blade Light and Axe Shadow, forcing Ling Han to remain locked in his own storm while the greater killing intent gathered elsewhere. And then, from the skies above, where the most decisive clash raged, came a sound that made the air itself seem to stiffen. "Humph!" Ma Duobao's cold humph echoed down from the heavens, heavy with disdain. "For the sake of, I will spare your life, scram!" The third killing formation could not help but sneer at first. What a big boast, to actually dare tell him to scram. He raised his head to look upwards, ready to mock this arrogance. Initially, his expression was one of disapproval, but immediately his expression changed drastically. Though the masses could not see his face beneath the cloak, they could clearly see his entire body trembling, as if some ancient nightmare had suddenly awakened in his bones. You are..." he exclaimed in shock, as if he had experienced a scare so deep it stole his breath. His tone was filled with indescribable terror. Ma Duobao's voice struck like an imperial decree carved in ice. "Are you getting lost or not?" he rebuked harshly. "Yes! Yes!" The third killing formation did not even dare say another word. He actually just turned around and left. And in an instant, he had disappeared without a trace, vanishing as if he had never been there. That was the third killing formation, an existence formed by nature, one who could kill even shattering Void Tier elites. How could it be that he would be scared off by just a single word? Only one thought could explain it. Could it be that Ma Duobao had another identity? The third killing formation had recognized him, and then, terrified, fled. But in war, a single heartbeat of distraction can become blood. "Humph, you still dare to lose focus when you are exchanging blows with us?" Wu Gaoyuan and his group smirked coldly, and then they all made their moves in the same breath, taking advantage of the moment. Hong! Instantly, Ma Duobao was drowned in endless light, attack upon attack, crashing like a barrage of celestial radiance. In this kind of highly intense battle, how could he split his attention? Wu Gaoyuan and his group all smiled. Even though the third killing formation had been scared off, if they could kill Ma Duobao, or at least inflict a serious injury on him, it would be absolutely worth it. But as the brilliance dissipated, the impossible revealed itself. Ma Duobao stood there proudly, without even a scratch. If one had to insist on proof that he had truly endured the barrage, then there were a few places on his imperial robes that had been torn, ragged edges fluttering like wounded banners, confirming the attacks had indeed landed. However, his body had not been wounded. "What?" Wu Gaoyuan and the others exclaimed in shock. What was going on here? They all had battle prowess of 18 stars of shattering Void Tier. If their attack landed solidly, then so what if the other had battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering Void Tier? He would still be severely wounded, or even killed directly. Then realization struck like a hammer. Your physique. Zuo Qifang finally came to realize, his voice tightening with disbelief. It has reached the toughness of level 10 precious metal. Pooh! Everyone choked in astonishment. A suffocating fear rose in their chests, because previously that terrifying physique of Ling Han's had already given them a psychological fear, and Ling Han had only possessed a monstrous body. His battle prowess was completely negligible, so there had at least been a way to manage him. But what about now? Ma Duobao's battle prowess was already on top of everyone here, and now adding this kind of powerful defense to the mix. How were they supposed to continue fighting? Wu Gaoyuan and his group all swallowed with difficulty. This was the first time they felt they had completely lost control of the situation in this war. This Ma Duobao could completely match the alternative dragon from years ago. His battle prowess was invincible, and his defenses were unbreakable. Even if immortals descended, what could they do against him? Yet in the depths of their dread, a thin thread of consolation remained. Thankfully, shattering void tier elites still had a limited lifespan. Time was the strongest weapon. I couldn't kill you, but I could trap you in the prison of this realm until your death. Maduo Bao, however, only smiled calmly, as if he could hear their thoughts and found them laughably small. He countered with a voice as steady as a mountain, splitting the clouds. Without this bit of ability, what use is there to speak of splitting open the skies? Shua, his aura spiked crazily, and killing intent surged forth like a tide of blades. Even Wu Gaoyuan and the others felt a chill run down their backs, goosebumps covering their whole bodies. In that instant, they truly believed something terrifyingly simple. He could kill them just by raising his hand.